Hello traders, welcome in this weekly outlook. As a result of my midweek's video, because of the FOMC, I received some questions based on the short-term and longer-term trades. What I said was, because of FOMC, I expected a weaker dollar, and there was, the possibility of some strength and then weakness, but I was looking for strength. Sorry, the other way around. I was looking for weakness in the dollar. So what we saw was during the FOMC, we saw a little bit stronger dollar, followed by a reversal for a weaker dollar, only to say the day after, during the ECB event, to see the dollar weakening once again. So in other words, the FOMC worked the way we wanted, but it wasn't the trigger I'm looking for medium, longer term target, which means you have to go back to the drawing board, look at the bigger picture, and then you see nothing really changed, not at all. It's just turning into a more complex correction. But that doesn't mean the analysis is invalidated longer term. It just means we have to look for another entry once again. So if we have a look at the dollar index, let me try to explain what I'm looking for, bigger picture. And then you see that what we just saw last week is nothing else than noise. We have this impulse higher, corrective move lower, and then the continuation higher. This three-wave pattern is confirmed to be over. That can turn into a five-wave pattern, but I don't think that's the case. I think this is the first move of a weaker dollar, making a correction now. Hence, this is a stronger dollar short term, which means euro dollar down, of course. But this has to take a little bit more time, most likely, and then I expect a continuation in the dollar weakness. All right, which means medium term, I'm looking for dollar strength. Right? Short term, I look for dollar weakness, medium term dollar strength, long term dollar weakness. That's the difference in how you look at fractals. So let me say, I expect now a correction lower in the dollar, which means the dollar weakness. Then this structure itself needs to complete for some more dollar strength. And then the biggest fractal will go down in terms of dollar weakness. That's how I look at the market right now. So if you zoom in, and last week, you see only this candle here. You see what we're doing? We're not doing much. This is still the corrective structure here that's going to unfold after a bearish impulse here. So this one candle here doesn't change nothing in the outlook. It's just noise, because that's not a unique wave. It's not a continuation of this move high here. All right, if you see this yellow box here, that's not over. This is just all the same. So it still has to correct itself. And that's the difference in fractals, and that's how I look at the market. And the main difference is it's an extension or continuation. Well, looking at the daily, this is not even confirmed to be over. So we're extending higher here. Is that going to make a new high? Possible. We're very close to it, but it doesn't change the outlook. I'm not looking for a different structure just yet. I'm not looking for a change in dollar strength or weakness neither. It's just extending a little bit more, taking its sweet time, but what has to happen will happen, and you just have to be on top of it in terms of not missing out of the trade. So what does it mean, dollar index next week? Well, we're dealing with this extremely impulsive move higher. I don't consider this to be the biggest impulse here on the 4-hour time frame. That's not what it is just yet in my book, but that doesn't really matter. If it settles by means of a correction, then I will be looking for continuation. But that's the 4-hour time frame. So the 1-hour time frame, what you want to see is you need to see some kind of correction of this move. And once that's corrected, you can start looking for potential buy. But you have to keep in mind that you buy short-term trade, which means you have to take profit accordingly, or at least manage your position accordingly, because there's most likely not going to result turn into a long-term buy. Right now, there's definitely not a buy, not a sell. Okay, what does it mean for the euro dollar? Very simple, basically the same, but then the other way around, of course. We saw this move high here, and I said I'll look for the correction and then the continuation higher. All right, well, I'm still doing that because I said statistically the downside is very limited for the month of June, and that never lets me down. It doesn't mean it can't go lower, but it means the downside is limited once again, which means you have to manage it accordingly. So if you want to sell the euro dollar, my advice would be manage it very closely, what means at least bring your stop loss to break even or start taking partial profit, because I don't see this to be the continuation lower, because that has to be a continuation of this move here. All right, I don't think that's the case. It can happen. Well, if you sell a sell setup and you manage it accordingly, you trail your stop loss lower all the way with the trade, you might have a phenomenal sell trade. But if you go a little easy on the trade, a short-term profitable position might turn into a loss. Hence, managed closely, because once again the downside is limited. All right, if I look at this, I'm not changing my bias, which means my bias is still the same. We have a 1, A, B, C lower maybe, and a C higher, to say the least, make this a 3F pattern. All right, that's still a simple pattern. Well, I realize this can turn into something else. Let me zoom out a little bit and say, let me go to the daily. That might be easier. Here we go. If this decides to make a lower low, right, this comes back down. I don't change my bias just yet. I still consider it A, B, and then some kind of a C, and maybe we have some kind of a expanding pattern, contracting. It can even go down and then make a higher high for C, changing it into a different pattern, because my market dynamics says that this needs to pass or reverse bullish, which means I'm still looking for something like this, even if we take out this low. So shorts, definitely short-term trades, nothing kind of changed longer term. Well, if you look at the 4-hour and we look at this structure here, I just want to point out one thing we saw previously in the dollar CAD on the daily time frame. By the way, 1-hour time frame, this is not a reversal yet. This needs to settle, and then I'm looking for buys, because I'm still looking for buys in the euro dollar. All right, nothing changed in that respect. Another scenario is that this turns into a correction. Well, then you sell, you manage accordingly, target the previous lows at least, and then definitely bring it to break even, if not anytime sooner. So let's go back to the example I was trying to explain. This move lower looks somewhat comparable to what we saw the dollar CAD on the daily time frame here. All right. Well, this gave us a perfect reversal sign for the continuation higher. This was just some kind of an expanding wave B higher, but it didn't invalidate nothing. And that's when you trade structure. You're not focused purely on levels, you put on the structure. And just imagine the euro dollar now does what we want and make the third leg higher. They will be presenting even better buy than last week. So being patient is paying off in that case, because now your profit can be tripled, because there's way more distance to be covered. Anyway, this yellow box is a perfect reversal sign. Let's see whether we got such a thing in euro dollar. If not, then just drill lower and trade accordingly on lower time frames. And once again, keep in mind that this can easily start making some bottom formation as well. I would not be scared away from a potential reversal. Even when we take out the low, you just follow structure. If you sell it, manage it accordingly. If you buy it, still targeting 119.50. And then take it from there. My buy, by the way, was a break-even trade. We had the minimum requirement by targeting this previous high, but that was not my trade. That's not a positive risk-reward trade, or not positive enough for me. So I got a break-even trade in currencies, because the dollar CAD, as you know, I shorted to 130 now 4 times, only to see it be taken out at break-even, and that's fine, because this is not a buy structure to me, and I still see this to be lower. I don't consider this to be the start of an impulse higher, not at all. It's just testing our patience, which is good, but I got all the time in the world. I'm a trader, so I'm not going to rush into a trade. This will present itself, and then the only thing I got to do is profit from it, and up until the time comes, I just stay aside, because we took out this high, and if this is somehow the structure that's going to take up to the upside, like big time, well, then it has to confirm itself. And if that happened, that's the first time I will start reevaluating, which means because we broke out this high now, let me be a little more precise. I think it's this one here, 131.20-ish. If that starts to consolidate, well, you have at least a short-term buy. Same thing as euro dollar, but then the opposite direction, managed closely, and it should take up. But once again, that needs to be confirmed on the daily, and the daily is not suggesting anything different than that this has to come down. So I'm still focused on the shorts up that things change, but that will not be this week. And if it does, I will update it. But so that means I'm still looking for the move lower. Pound dollar, very comparable to the euro dollar, basically the same. Difference is this high didn't take out the previous high, also break-even trade. But you see I'm looking at the same thing, A, B, C, for a continuation high to go towards the 136. 1 hour time frame. Well, let's see what this is. This is, to me, is nothing, not an impulse yet. Could very well be a strong reversal into 3 waves. But if this consolidates somewhat, gives me a confirmation of a buy trade, then I will buy once again, and then still target the 4 hour continuation. And we only have a better trade. If you want to sell it, same as euro dollar, you have to measure it very closely because this has to correct some more. Dollar Swiss surprised me, but in terms of how fast it went, but it was a scenario I gave as a possible scenario without changing anything. If you want to understand what I'm referring to, then I suggest watch the Wednesday video once again. I think I drew it out. I said this can easily turn into a 1, 2, 3 without invalidating anything. It could be a 1, a 2, and then 3 lower. That's what I'm looking for. Well, this, however, you see, I'm anticipating a correction because I need to focus on what's in front of me. Right now, this is the only way, the only pair that shows a potential bullish impulse, which means that this starts to confirm itself, I will buy it. Although I consider this to be a very shallow correction. So you need to see a confirmation here. That's gonna take a couple hours, maybe more than a day most likely. I don't think that will happen on Monday. Not the push higher I am looking for. That would be an extension, not a continuation. I like to see the continuation of this move. So if we see something like that in the beginning of the week, keep an eye on this system, or this pattern, guys. Don't jump in for the long just yet. Then we do something like this, and then maybe something like that. So this is the only one that I consider buying the dollar right now, with the potential of taking out this high. But once again, right now, that's not confirmed at all. So this structure is still very valid, and that will be phenomenal. So slightly different for the dollar Swiss. Dollar yen, taking its sweet time. That's what we wanted. We look for a continuation of this move, but I don't think this is over. I think the way this channel higher is unfolding, this little one here, is just some kind of wave B, and we need to look for something like this before we continue high. That didn't change. And you see the response in dollar yen wasn't that impulsive. You see many overlaps. I still consider this to be corrective. It is actually corrective according to my analysis, and we are still looking for the sell and then try to target the continuation of this leg, something like this. Let's see where that's possible. But I think that's what we need. I don't see this to be the continuation of the channel in blue on the left. So still focused on the downside in a corrective structure so we can buy the continuation of the daily time frame. Let me highlight it once again. 1, 2, and 3. As you know, I thought that this pattern is a simple visualization what I'm looking for. But the key is that this doesn't look ready to the upside just yet. Doesn't mean you can't buy it. If you see a 1 hour correction, you can definitely buy the continuation. But I'm repeating myself, make sure to mention it accordingly, because it looks like the upside is limited for the dollar yen. And therefore, well, you don't want to let a profitable trade turn into a losing trade. Aussie dollar, that was the only one I said last week that might start to reverse. Because, or not the only one, there was the best one, because we said we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have a connecting wave, we have 1, we have 2, and we're going to make a 3. I think I said it all along from here, from the low. We use that as an example, how corrections unfold themselves, 3 higher, down, and only to push higher for better correction, and then the sell. We're going to take out these lows. I didn't expect to see it this week, because FOMC did this what we wanted. It gave the drop lower here to see it come back up, but there was nothing but a wave A, because I see this as an A, B, and a C, which suggests that this correction is over. And I'm not looking for buys in Aussie dollar, only after we take it out, at least this low, but we're pretty close. So let's see, maybe you have a short-term correction beginning of the week, then we will sell, target this low to say the least, and see how much more much further it can drop. So that's slightly different than the euro and the pound, in my opinion. But that might change, of course. But right now, just use this downside momentum in your advantage. And if you want to buy the dollar, this might be one of the pairs you want to look at. Right now, that's not the case. This needs definitely a more corrective structure, more pronounced correction before you can start looking for sells. New Zealand dollar. This is my bigger picture. I was talking to some guys a while ago that I didn't see this to be an expanding pattern. It just doesn't have the characteristics. It is possible, of course. Nothing is impossible in trading. I mean, it's a probability game, so to keep that into consideration. However, that's not how I looked at it. And that push high didn't change that. This move high didn't change my bias neither. You can see that on my videos. I actually think that we saw something like this. This was a move higher. Now we make a 1, 2, 3 correction, and then we can go higher once again. So that's what I'm looking for, meaning that we might be able to have some profit by means of this correction. If this consolidates target, this low and then that low. That's what I'm gonna look for. And I realized that this can turn into something we just showed by means of the dollar CAD, which is a scenario for the euro and the pound, that this just comes up once again. But we're in corrective structures, so this has the potential to extend once more. That would primarily be the dollar and not so much the Kiwi. So we'll see about that. But if this, same as Aussie dollar, makes some kind of correction at the beginning of the week, you want to sell it, target the lows, and look for the scenario I just showed on the daily time frame. All right, well, Forex was a lot of break even, but then we always got the commodities, which do amazing. We have been on top of gold all along. And I said, I'm looking for sells in gold and buys in silver, which doesn't mean I'm going to trade one against the other. That means if you see a buy, I buy silver. If I see a sell, I sell gold. I use this as an example. I think comparable to the Aussie dollar, this correction was perfect. So I came up, corrective leg low, only to see another corrective leg high. I took out the high here at 1307, which is a perfect 3-wave pattern. This is a classic textbook example. And we saw it from the beginning. And then you have a drop, and that makes the week after all. So a lot of break-even trades, but then gold does the job for us. This reached the minimum target, but as I showed you before, we have the potential to make a follow-up of this move, corrective leg, and then that move. That's a big drop. I'm not sure where that's going to happen. This can involve something else as well, but let's see whether we can at least target these lows here and then take it from there. Pardon me, I took 50% profit at the previous low. And now the rest on the table break even to see whether we move lower. Silver, of course, did the same thing. It dropped as well. And of course, because the driver was the same, so then there's correlation. And that's the tricky part about correlation. It only makes sense if you are able to identify the driver. And I said, just use a pending because this will drop fast. Well, this was a fast drop, but not enough. We need to take out this low and then that low for buy. This probably is going to correct and then drop once again. So use your pending buys. All right, guys, that's it for me. Feel free to share or like the video. I will update to the website this week, and I wish you all safe trades. See you next week. Bye-bye.